Mike Scotto over at Hoops Hype has reported today that there is, and this is his language, I want to stress that, the Sixers have, quote, exploratory interest in trading for Nets forward Dorian Finney-Smith. League sources told Hoops Hype, but nothing is considered imminent there. We've brought Dorian Finney-Smith up on this show
a ton.
I feel like every show up to this point, and he is at, Derek, the very high end of, if they do all the maneuvering possible to fit him, there would be very little maneuverability. I believe you said, Derek, correct me if I'm wrong, that if they were to trade for him specifically, or that type of number specifically, that their other minimum guys would have to be younger players.
Yeah, like rookie
smaller minimum contracts. So that's something to keep in mind.
So real quick on that. When you sign a veteran to a minimum contract, your cap hit is equal to that of a 2-year veteran. They do that basically so like a 10-year veteran doesn't cost more on your cap than a 2-year veteran, so that veterans aren't being run out of the league, basically. They want to make sure that people who have been in the league continue to have a chance and aren't losing spots basically for cap reasons. So all minimum contracts above 2 years get basically prorated down to a 2-year minimum, but a rookie, a 0-year minimum in this case, would cost, I think, about $1 million less per year. So that is one way to get under that apron.
Yes. So Dorian Finney-Smith, if somehow he's not a free agent, so he's not technically in this list that we're running through today, but he does check some of the boxes that I think are left to be filled for this team. I think he's not like a 1 through 4 defender, but certainly like a 3-4 switchy type defender. Good athlete, guy who's played in a bunch of playoff games at this point. How many playoff games has he actually appeared in at this point? About 35. He said 4 runs through the playoffs, including one long one in Dallas. So has some playoff experience. The shot is his big swing skill. That has come and gone. There was a point last year where we heard the Nets were asking for the sun and the moon for him. I think he was shooting like 40%. Yeah. And that came down to earth. He ended up shooting under 35%, 34.8 on 4.9 a game. So the volume was good. He's a comfortable shooter, right? He hovers around that 5 attempts per game mark over the last 3-4 years or so. That's to the good. It's a decent rebounder, although wish he was a slightly better rebounder. He's not a Josh Hart, certainly. Not much of a playmaker. He can make, the standstill swing passes, but you're not going to ask him to attack off the dribble and be that kind of passer, as Derek apparently is dying slowly over there.
Continually dying.
I would like him. I'm not sure that it's worth putting yourself in like complete lockdown for the other salaries you have to get, but that's certainly a good example of a player that if they do a sign and trade with KJ or a Paul Reed type deal, that maybe that's is that the top of what they can get as far as
there's might be like $300K more they could theoretically go, but it's right at the top.
Yeah, so I like him, don't love him, think he'd be a good addition. Nobody's gonna be throwing a start the parade talk over Dorian Finney-Smith. I'd say that.
Haven't watched him a lot over the last year and a half specifically. I watched him in Dallas just like everyone else did. But looking at him and what he was doing with the Brooklyn Nets, you guys like to talk about the connective piece. He is one of those. He may not be as good of a passer as Nick Batum, but he is a connective piece. He understands his role. He doesn't get frustrated if the ball doesn't find him. He played with Cam Thomas. So just imagine what we were watching. So
there's no Cam Thomas on this team.
There's no Cam Thomas on this team. There's some unselfish players. There were some unselfish players there, but it was a black hole once it got to number 24. That being said, the shooting. Watched a lot of games where they would leave him alone on purpose. Now, he can knock down a shot. It looks good. He's been around the league long enough where the shot doesn't look bad. Just doesn't necessarily fall as much as you would like percentage-wise. And on this basketball team, playing with the now 3 cornerstones of your squad, he's going to get some pretty good looks again in this role. Now, Playing on that Brooklyn team, not so much because of the attention. Maybe Kale would get 2 people on him, but everyone else was single coverage. So when the ball did find him, he would have some open shots. Yes, they would leave him open for those reasons, especially if he missed his first 2 or 3. And they generally do that with anyone else anyway. But when talking about the player overall, he does all the dirty work things that you want. He will attack the glass. He will, of course, be that connective guy. And he will defend anybody that you ask him to defend on the other side. You may not love him 1 through 5, but he is certainly one that's going to give the effort to defending those players should he get switched on. So he is that. He can still run the floor, things of that nature, set some really good screens at a decent size. He's not a bad piece. So it's just about how are you getting him in that trade? What do you have to do? And are you worried about any tax implications when it comes to Dorian Finney-Smith? So I do like that name overall when it comes to him. He's played in a lot of games in the playoffs, 34. That's a decent amount that we're talking about. And if you're looking at the 76ers in this case, they want to make a deep run, and you want some people who've already been there and already done that as well.
We all silly like the mayor.